And welcome back to Subculture After Dark. Well, Night Flight Orchestra are heading to Australia in just 2 weeks' time, and we know a lot of you out there are very, very excited about this tour, so we thought we would actually get the man himself, Bjorn Street, on our show tonight to talk a little bit about this amazing tour. Mate, how are you going?
Really good. Thanks for having me on the show. How are you?
I am really well. Now, mate, we are so excited about this upcoming tour. Tell us a little bit about how you guys feel about coming back to Australia.
We are very, very excited. I mean, we haven't been to Australia with the Night Flight Orchestra before. We've been there quite a few times with Soilwork, I think about 10 times, but now it's time for this airborne orchestra to hit Australia, and we couldn't be more excited. It's amazing.
Are you aware of how many Night Flight Orchestra fans there are here in Australia? Because it seems every time you have a new single come out, we get so many requests to play those tracks. Are you aware of how many fans you've got?
Cool. No, I mean, a little bit, I guess, because I've noticed the recent tours that we've done with Soilwork. There's a lot of people coming up to me. It's like, oh, when is Night Flight Orchestra coming to Australia? And people bringing, vinyls to the meet and greets and for us to sign, and so you could feel that there's something going on at least, but it's kind of hard to get a clear picture of how many fans we will have. So it's going to be really exciting to see who's coming out to the shows.
Now, I know from over the years when I've spoken to you about Soilwork tours, you love Australia. Tell us a little bit about what some of the things are you like to do when you're here in Australia.
Well, I mean, it's usually a pretty intense schedule, but there's been times, like I think it was in 2016 when I actually got to bring my dad over to Australia, and we also hit New Zealand on that tour, and we got some days off in Australia and also in New Zealand. So I mean, we had such a great time, and there's a lot to see. In Australia, obviously, and I remember we landed in Perth, and it was 43 degrees when we landed. That was like hitting a wall, and we just instantly went down to the beach and took a dip. And 2 weeks later, we got to know that was a great white and who attacked somebody on the same beach, and so and there was that, and then. Also going, of course, to the koala sanctuaries and stuff like that. It's something that we really enjoyed to do, and just being around people too. I really like the vibe in general. Being around people. Going to bars and just hang out. And people come up and talk to you. It's really social, I would say, compared to Sweden in many ways.
Definitely. Now, as you said, this is the first time that Night Flight Orchestra has been to Australia. Does that change how you approach your set list every night? Because you're 5 albums in now and never been here. Does that change what you do with your set list, say, compared to what you would do in Europe?
Not that much. I mean, we try to... It's always hard, of course. We have that many albums out, and of course, people want to hear old gems as well. But we have... I think just about every album represented in the set list, and I think that's important. Then, of course, you want to sort of focus a bit more on the more recent stuff, because we're still out there promoting our latest albums. Aromantic 1 sort of got swallowed by COVID, and then we made an Aromantic 2, and now we can tour for both of the albums. So those albums are definitely, represented in the set list as well. But there's something from each and every album. So I think it's a really good set list that really represents who the Night Flight Orchestra, are.
I was going to ask about that. When Aromantic came out and suddenly we were in the middle of a pandemic, what was that like for you as an artist? I mean, that was such a weird time to have an album come out and then not be able to tour off the back of it. What was that like for you personally?
Well, it was obviously a really strange feeling and a big anticlimax, obviously, and we were definitely not alone. There's so many bands out there that just released a new album and was on tour as well. I mean, we just embarked on our first tour for that album, and we got 1 week in, and then they started to close down France and Spain, and then we knew, okay, we got to go home, and that was a big letdown, and we just felt like, okay, what are we going to do now? Because we don't know how long this is going to last. And then we sort of realized that, we're not done with the Aromantic concept. We're definitely not done, because that was the first tour, and we decided to make it an Aromantic 2. So once things open up again, we could tour for both of the albums, so that was sort of the mindset. And I think they are very much connected as well. You could release them as a double album, pretty much.
You're such a hard-working artist, though, especially juggling things between Night Flight Orchestra and Soilwork. What was that like for you being at home during that time? That must have almost felt like a weird concept.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The first year, it was a much needed break. It's not like I wish for a pandemic to hit the earth, But as far as taking some time off, that was the timing was good in the end. Even though I really wanted to do that full tour that we had lined up for the Night Flight Orchestra, but once I was home and sort of relaxed a bit, I noticed that okay, this was probably needed. Because it's been a lot, and but then the second year, I mean, it's like, okay, this is too much. This is definitely pushing it. And I started to feel the itch. And that's, but as a whole, I think it was still a very creative time. It was not like I just was lying around on the couch all day, and my music brain is always spinning. So I did a lot of stuff, a lot of section work, a lot of guest vocals. We also did the At the Movies thing. I don't know if you heard about that, but that was, it's like soundtracks from the 80s in sort of a hard rock versions of it. And I also had some time to do some stuff with the band that I have with my wife, called Donna Canone. It's more sort of like punk rock stuff. So I play guitar in that band, so that was nice to pick up the guitar again a little bit. And but overall, it was quite a relaxing time, and I think it was needed. But then, second year, I think everybody can agree on that. It's like, okay, this is definitely too much. We need to get out there now. So, and then of course, Soilwork also released a new album. So, and ever since things open up, we're doing everything at the same time. So it's been quite stressful, but I think eventually things will get in sync, and that we can sort of divide the touring cycles and the album cycles.
I wanted to go back and ask you a little bit about what you did when you went back and covered some of those 80s movie soundtracks. That was one of the things that definitely kept me sane during that time as a movie lover. What was that like for you going back and over those tracks and exploring them? But also, are you a huge movie lover yourself?
I mean, yes, absolutely, a huge movie lover, and I mean, there's something about 80s movies, and also, like, I'm starting to become really nostalgic about 90s movies now as well.
Yeah.
So that's why we also did sort of a second album as well with 90s stuff. But it was really, Chris Laney's idea, the guitarist in the band from the beginning, because he just called me during COVID. He's like, okay, I'm really bored, Bjorn. Like, do you want to do something like a project? He's like, okay, what do you have in mind? He's like, well, I was thinking if we do like hard rock versions of classic 80s soundtracks. And I was like, okay, sounds cool. But it felt like it wasn't that unique. It felt like, okay, people have done that a lot before, haven't they? But then we did the... which was the first track, No Easy Way Out, I think it was, by Robert Tepper from the Rocky movies, and it was so much fun. And then we released it, and then people got really excited. I was like, well, cool. And then, okay, let's make another one. And I can't remember what the second track was, but that's when we noticed in social media that people really, really, liked it, and it was almost like, wow, is this going to be almost like a subscription, like every Thursday? It's like, yeah, I guess so. And then ended up with people just sitting there waiting every Thursday night, like, okay, I wonder what it's going to be tonight. It's like, can't wait. And it's like, wow, people are really, getting some comfort through these songs. And I think maybe getting nostalgic and something to hold on to during these weird times, So I think we provided something very, very beautiful in the end, because people really, they felt nostalgic and felt comfort through these songs.
Definitely. Now, bringing it back to Aromantic 1 and 2, those albums are such fun albums to listen to. How have you found that those tracks have gone live? Are crowds just having a massive amount of fun when you play the tracks off those albums?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've gone really well live, and I would say especially the second one. But I guess we have been playing more from the second album since that was sort of new once things open up, and but I think just in general, these tracks really come alive on stage and are really fun to play live. And for each and every album, it's always a challenge, with the vocals as well. I always try to top myself, and it's not easy things to sing, but things have been going pretty well, and I think they sound really good live, and we've really become friends with these songs now, and I think you can tell. We just opened up for Kiss as well a week ago here in Sweden on their very last two shows here. So we played a bunch of those songs there as well, and there was obviously a lot of people who have not heard about us before, and they really got into it. So I think that definitely says something.
That was actually going to be one of my questions later on, but I'll ask now. That must have been such a huge honor for you, being able to perform in support of Kiss in their last ever two shows in Sweden. That must have been a huge honor.
Absolutely, we're extremely grateful to be a part of that, and they couldn't be more friendly. I mean, the hospitality was fantastic. We got to meet the band, take pictures, and Gene Simmons came into our dressing room a couple of times and talked to us. Doc McGee came in to say hi. Paul Stanley also came to say hi, and they were sounding fantastic as well. The concerts were held at this. It's sort of like the Red Rocks of Sweden. I don't know if you heard of Red Rocks in America. It's sort of like almost like a hole in the ground. It's sort of like an amphitheater thing, and it's absolutely gorgeous place, and to be a part of that for their very last two shows, I mean, amazing. People should look it up. It's called Dalhalla, this place, and instead of Valhalla, it's Dalhalla. So it's just replace the V with a D, basically, and you should just Google and see images from this place. It's absolutely magical, and there's a bunch of our pictures out in social media as well, so that you can see. So, mind blowing.
Definitely. Now, we talked before about the tracks off the new album being very fun to play live. A lot of your Aussie fans are actually asking, what can they expect from a Night Flight Orchestra show? What have you got in store for us?
Well, it's going to be one hell of a dance party for sure, and I always say this in interviews, but this band really has a unifying factor, and it brings people from different genres together. You see rock dads, you see, hipsters, girls, 14-year-old girls with braces, and metalheads in behemoth patches and God knows what, and they're sort of, we're all collected. We gather those for the show, and then by the end of the night, everybody's dancing. That's usually what happens. And like I mentioned before, some of these songs, if you enjoy our songs on the albums, you come and watch a live show. They really come alive, and it's absolutely electric, the whole thing.
Awesome. Now, I had another quick question just before we go. We had the track "The Sensation" suddenly land on us. What is happening now? Like, are we going to get some more singles very, very soon? Or is there an album coming? What's the plan ahead now for Night Flight Orchestra?
There will probably be one more single coming after the summer, and probably one in the beginning of next year, and that's going to lead up to a new album being released in, I would say, April, May, something like that.
Awesome. Well, Bjorn.
So that's what's in store. It's sounding really good.
Awesome. Well, Bjorn, we are going to play The Sensation on our show again right now, and we might grab something off Aromantic too as well. What would you like to say to all of the fans out there, not only before they listen to these two tracks, but also before they go out and grab tickets to these three shows that have got coming up in Australia?
Well, I mean, you cannot miss these shows. I mean, it's the first time Night Flight Orchestra coming to Australia, and it's going to be one hell of a party, and hopefully we're planting a seed here, and we can return for the next album. So come on out and be a part of this first little journey that we're doing.